Hello guys, you are seeing Prime News Australia, where we show you the latest and important news of Australia in the fastest and reliable way. So come, let's start by not delaying 25 big updates of the Australia, especially for you. Before proceeding in the video, comment by commenting from which state you are watching, and also like video so that YouTube can reach this video to more people of Australia.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced that the federal government will have the fuel excise on petrol and diesel for 3 months, saving motorists around 26 cents per litre at the pump. The heavy vehicle road user charge will also be temporarily removed. This decision follows national cabinet discussions addressing the severe fuel crisis caused by the escalating U.S.-Israel war with Iran, which has driven global oil prices above $116 per barrel and led to widespread shortages at service stations across the country. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called for greater clarity from U.S. President Donald Trump on the objectives of the ongoing military campaign in Iran. Speaking after meetings of the National Security Committee, Albanese stressed the need for de-escalation as the conflict severely disrupts global oil supplies and impacts Australia's fuel security and economy. Australians are already feeling the hefty price through higher energy costs and shortages. Dramatic blood red and orange skies blanketed Shark Bay in Western Australia due to iron-rich dust stirred up by strong winds from tropical cyclone Narelle. The striking phenomenon, captured on video, occurred just before the cyclone made landfall on the coast. It became the first storm system in over 20 years to affect 3 Australian states and territories. After a 7-month nationwide manhunt, Victorian police fatally shot fugitive Desi Freeman during a 3-hour standoff at a rural property near Porapunka in northeast Victoria. Freeman was the prime suspect in the murder of 2 police officers and the serious wounding of a 3rd officer last year. He refused to surrender peacefully when confronted by heavily armed officers. Families of the slain officers expressed relief at finally receiving closure following the resolution of the high-profile case that had shocked the nation. The Albanese Labour government has backed a proposed parliamentary inquiry by the Greens into Australia's gas export tax regime. The inquiry aims to examine whether imposing higher taxes on LNG exports could help stabilize domestic fuel and energy prices during the current global energy crisis triggered by the Iran war. The decision comes amid growing political pressure from rising costs affecting households, farmers, and industries. National Cabinet convened urgently to tackle the worsening fuel crisis, adopting a 4-stage national fuel security plan. Measures discussed include encouraging work-from-home arrangements to cut demand, guidelines for potential rationing, and temporary removal of heavy road user charges. Several states reported petrol station shortages impacting truck drivers, farmers, and essential services. The government is also securing additional jet fuel shipments. Westpac economists have predicted up to 3 more interest rate hikes this year, potentially pushing the cash rate to an 18-year high. The forecast is driven by persistent high oil prices resulting from the Iran war and the domestic fuel crisis, which could reignite inflation pressures. Mortgage holders already struggling with cost of living increases may face further strain, even with the government's temporary fuel excise cut. Experts have scrutinized Australia's emergency fuel stockpiles in comparison to other nations, highlighting the country's heavy reliance on imported refined petroleum. Amid disruptions to global supplies caused by the closure of key routes in the Iran conflict, concerns have grown over limited reserves and risks of rationing. The government maintains there are currently over 30 days of reserves, the highest level in a decade. Hundreds of ABC staff across the country, including in Melbourne, staged a 24-hour nationwide strike, demanding better pay amid real wage cuts. The action, the first major strike at the public broadcaster in 20 years, disrupted TV, radio, and digital services, forcing reliance on BBC repeats and archived content. Staff highlighted the impact on journalism quality and working conditions. Negotiations with management continue as unions push for fairer remuneration in line with inflation and industry standards. The Victorian government has announced that public transport will be free throughout April to ease cost of living pressures on residents and reduce fuel demand during the ongoing crisis. The initiative contrasts with other states' approaches discussed at National Cabinet. It aims to encourage greater use of trains, trams, and buses, while households and businesses grapple with soaring petrol and diesel prices linked to the Middle East conflict and global oil supply shocks. Agricultural leaders and fishing operators have appealed for urgent government fuel relief, warning that diesel shortages and price spikes could severely disrupt harvesting, transport, and food supply chains. Many rural operators reported difficulties accessing fuel amid the crisis exacerbated by the Iran war. Potential impacts include higher food prices and delays in essential production. Latest opinion polls show declining support for the Albanese government over its handling of the fuel crisis and the economic fallout from the Iran war, with One Nation gaining ground among voters. frustration has grown over rising living costs and perceived leadership responses. Results from the recent South Australian state election also reflected shifting voter sentiments, with cost of living anxieties remaining a dominant issue influencing federal voting intentions. Advocates are pushing for an expansion of rules requiring major retailers, including supermarkets and hardware stores, to accept cash payments. The proposal aims to protect vulnerable consumers, elderly citizens, and small businesses in an increasingly digital economy, particularly during periods of economic uncertainty driven by fuel price volatility. Reports indicate that some private health insurers and providers expanding into non-core business areas are contributing to higher premiums and a reduced focus on essential medical services. Patients are facing longer waiting times or increased out-of-pocket expenses as a result. Critics argue this diversification trend distracts from core healthcare priorities at a time when economic stresses from the fuel crisis are already placing additional strain on household budgets and medical affordability. Experts have warned that rapid adoption of artificial intelligence could lead to significant job disruptions across multiple Australian industries, including media, administration, and manufacturing. There is an urgent call for investment in reskilling and upskilling programs to mitigate the social and economic impacts. A recent survey has revealed that nearly 70% of Australians expect major national security crises or military involvement within the next 5 years. Many respondents criticize the government for insufficient transparency regarding risks from global conflicts, cyber threats, and economic shocks. Heightened anxiety linked to the ongoing Iran war and its domestic consequences was evident, with concerns also raised about potential foreign military actions affecting Australian soil. The Australian Federal Police, assisted by Border Force, executed a search warrant on a vessel in Sydney Harbour's Snails Bay as part of an ongoing investigation. Details about the specific operation remain limited. The action occurred against a backdrop of broader security measures as authorities monitor potential risks associated with international tensions and disruptions to global supply chains affecting the country. A trial of a new one-way entry security gate system at selected Woolworths stores has sparked debate and criticism. While aimed at improving safety and reducing theft, the initiative has been accused of potentially disadvantaging shoppers with mobility issues, prams, or shopping trolleys. Senior ministers from Australia and New Zealand have pledged to deepen defense and military cooperation amid rising global and regional threats, including the Iran conflict and Indo-Pacific challenges. Both nations described the current international environment as one of the most dangerous periods in recent history. The strengthened partnership focuses on enhanced intelligence sharing, joint readiness, and coordinated responses to security concerns affecting the two countries. Analysts have warned that a prolonged Middle East conflict could force Australia to implement fuel rationing, with severe consequences for transport, agriculture, healthcare, and other essential services. The government is taking steps to underwrite extra shipments and bolster powers to secure supplies. Experts urge comprehensive preparations to safeguard critical sectors from what has been described as one of the biggest oil supply shocks in recent history. Following Labor's strong performance and One Nation's notable gains in the recent South Australian state election, federal polling has shown some positive swings towards the Albanese government. Political analysts have linked the results to voter concerns over economic management during the fuel crisis. However, cost of living pressures and handling of the Iran war fallout continue to be key battlegrounds that could shape future electoral outcomes. Tropical cyclone Narelle has caused widespread disruption across parts of Western Australia after making landfall, isolating communities like Exmouth and triggering severe flood watches in areas such as Carnarvon. The Gascoyne River has flowed for the first time in 18 months, inundating crops and roads. Evacuation centers have been opened, and authorities have urged residents to avoid floodwaters, with recovery efforts expected to take considerable time. The sharp rise in petrol and diesel prices driven by the Iran war has led to a surge in consumer interest in electric vehicles and hybrids across Australia. Industry experts predict this could translate into record sales as motorists seek alternatives to reduce reliance on fossil fuels amid ongoing shortages and high costs at the pump. Treasurer Jim Chalmers has acknowledged that Australians are paying a significant economic price due to the ongoing war in the Middle East. While the conflict may slightly moderate headline inflation in some areas, it risks broader negative impacts on growth and living standards. Chalmers stressed the importance of the war ending soon as the government continues to roll out various fuel relief and security measures. Opposition politicians and industry commentators have called for Australia to increase domestic oil exploration and drilling to enhance fuel security and reduce vulnerability to global shocks such as the current Iran war. The debate has intensified as fuel prices reach record levels and shortages emerge at pumps. Would you like me to analyze these reports for any specific